Hey there. So, today's video is about the scariest horror creatures, the ones who get bigger, smarter, stronger, and harder to kill every time they feed on us humans. In this scenario, their kills are like an upgrade for them, rather than just a body count. I'll be talking about 8 creatures from ancient indigenous folklore, and also modern sci-fi horror, who completely change after consuming humans, and just satisfying their hunger is not the main goal here. So, let's start. The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982 still keeps me up at night. The deal with this creature is that it totally becomes you after it consumes you. According to the film's lore, the Thing is an extraterrestrial organism that crash-landed on Earth and lay buried in Antarctic ice for over 100,000 years. Unfortunately, this thing thaws out and gets loose at a research station. Immediately, it starts absorbing humans cell by cell and replicates the host so nicely that even a blood test won't catch it initially. So yeah, it becomes the person down to the molecular level. The evolution mechanic is deeply disturbing. Every organism that the Thing has ever consumed across potentially millions of years of interstellar travel gets added to its repertoire. By the time that it reaches that Antarctic base, it already has an unimaginable library of biological blueprints. It can even grow spider legs out of a severed head and turn a human chest into a giant mouth. The horror works on 2 levels. First, it gets stronger with every victim, and second, which makes The Thing one of the greatest horror films ever made, no one can tell who's already been taken. You can't trust the person next to you, because every person in that base could already be gone, and whatever replaces them is already learning from you. Such a scary concept, as if the creature didn't look scary enough. Xenomorph. The Alien franchise is one of my favorites and is a completely different kind of horror. The Xenomorph here evolves by gestating humans and even other hosts. Pay attention here, because this is one of the most disturbing examples of biological horror world building in science fiction. So, a facehugger, which is the second stage of the Xenomorph's life cycle, implants an embryo into a host. Then, the third stage, which is the chest burster that's developing inside the host, actively absorbs the host's DNA through a process called horizontal gene transfer. The Xenomorph that eventually bursts out is shaped in the physical form of whoever it gestated in. We get the classic bipedal form Xenomorph when it gestates in a human that's human-sized and is fast and upright. In Alien 3, the creature gestated in a dog or an ox, depending on whether you're watching the theatrical cut or the assembly cut. So what came out was a quadrupedal that's built completely differently. It's lower to the ground and runs the fastest, hence its name being the Runner. Then, remember the Predalien? That should have been illegal, man. It's like being attacked by 2 fears at once. In Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, the facehugger gestated a predator. You can imagine the result. It inherited the predator's physical strength and its dreadlock-like extensions. So basically, the Xenomorph goes through a rapid evolution every time it reproduces, as every new species that the Xenomorph encounters is a potential new form. It just needs just one host from a new environment to adapt to it. A human host gives it traits suited for hunting humans, whereas a predator host gives it a deadlier warrior-like form. This has to be one of the most frightening evolutionary concepts in all of fiction. The Blob. The Blob, both the 1958 original and the 1988 remake, gets bigger and bigger every time it consumes a human. Way more basic than DNA absorption, as it neither gains intelligence nor new abilities. But it's still terrifying, and I'll explain why. The Blob is a shapeless, gelatinous mass that dissolves and absorbs organic matter on contact. It starts small, almost unnoticeable, but every human that it devours directly adds to its physical volume and makes it rapidly more dangerous. It moves faster, exerts more pressure, can cover more area, and swallows more humans simultaneously. So, it just needs to keep eating, and this kind of evolution is oppressive in a very unique way. Look, you can at least figure out some way to fight back against the Thing or the Xenomorph if you understand the biology, but you can't play any tricks with the Blob here. In the 1988 remake, directed by Chuck Russell, there's a particularly grim detail where the Blob is a biological weapon experiment gone wrong by the government. So, this means that the creature's ability to grow stronger through consumption was probably created on purpose, which makes it considerably scarier. Now, extreme cold is the only thing that can slow the blob down. But then again, when it's already eaten enough people, cooling something so big becomes nearly impossible. The blob wins here by simple math, and eventually there's nothing left to stop it. The Fly. Bzz, bzz. This one is very personal to me because of how tragic the movie was. David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986 involves a human, more specifically a scientist named Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum. His body becomes something that just has to keep eating in order to keep itself alive. So what happens is that Brundle accidentally teleports himself along with a housefly, and the computer merges their DNA even to the smallest parts. I think this transformation must be one of cinema's most uncomfortable ones. I mean, his body starts changing itself, and as it changes, his biological urges become stronger. He starts craving sugar, then meat, then organic matter in larger quantities. His body is constantly changing, and whatever he's consuming is shaping him towards something more monstrous and unstable, and his body literally demands to eat more to get stronger. The evolution here is classic Cronenbergian body horror. The climax of the movie is even more disturbing, as he's deteriorated to the point where he attempts to forcibly fuse himself with another human being using his own teleportation pod in order to combine his DNA with their healthy biology and repair his collapsing body. The devastating part is that Brundle is understanding what's happening, and he just can't stop it. He never wanted to hunt anyone, but didn't have any control over his condition, and it was making him consume everything around him. Watching him lose himself piece by piece hurts even more than the body horror. The Wendigo. The Wendigo is one of the oldest documented monsters in human storytelling and dates back further than every other entry on this list by centuries. It originated from the folklore of multiple Algonquin-speaking indigenous people of North America, such as the Ojibwe, the Cree, and the Naskapi. The Wendigo myth varies across different nations, but the most relevant idea is that in traditions like those of the Ojibwe and Eastern Cree, whenever a Wendigo ate another person, it'd grow in proportion to the meal it's just consumed. So, the Wendigo would grow as big as its prey. However, its hunger also grew proportionally, so it was never satisfied, and the larger it became, the more it needed to eat. The Wendigo is typically born when a human being resorts to cannibalism, usually during a famine or desperate circumstances. Eating human flesh triggers the transformation, and once you cross that line, well, something crosses over in you. I feel that the film Antlers, which came out in 2021, is the most loyal to the physical expansion idea, as it shows how the monster kept increasing the more it ate. Then we have Ravenous in 1999, which captures the transformation from a cannibal angle perfectly. And yeah, I'm sure you're thinking about Yellow Jackets if you're watching it, because the show is definitely playing with these ideas, but in a more psychological way. The Wendigo is more of a moral horror, like a warning that you become this thing if you consume another human. And once you make that choice, you're trapped in that cycle of endless hunger. Graboids. This one is the most obvious entry on this list because the creature actually levels up biologically across an entire film franchise through consumption. The Graboid is from the Tremor series, which started with the original movie in 1990. Graboids begin as huge, underground, worm-like predators that hunt by sensing vibrations in the ground. They are fast, huge, and capable of swallowing a person whole underground with more or less no warning. They're already terrifying as it is, but the reason I put them on this list is because eating lets them evolve into completely different forms. Oh, they don't just get bigger? Well, we're screwed yet again. Literally. A new creature called the Shriekers comes out of them after they split open upon consuming enough humans. And these creatures are completely different in the way that they move, sense, or hunt. While the Graboid hunts underground and ambushes its prey, the Shrieker becomes an active surface predator that rapidly multiplies in large numbers. It gets worse with every transformation. When the Shriekers feed enough, they become ass blasters. How dangerous can the ass blaster be, right? Well, guess what? They can fly through a burning chemical reaction, so that's only 2 feeding cycles, and they've already gone from an underground worm to a flying predator. It just keeps getting closer to becoming something that can hunt you on land, underground, and even through air. Pennywise, It. The evolution of Stephen King's It is more psychological than everything else on this list. The novel describes it as an ancient cosmic entity that's so old that we can barely comprehend it. It wakes up roughly every 27 years in Derry, Maine, to feed. Pennywise the dancing clown is just a mask or its physical form. The actual entity exists in a void between dimensions that King calls the macroverse or Todash darkness. It consumes human flesh to remain physically present in our world, but it also feeds on fear, specifically on the intense psychological terror of its victims. This two-sided hunger makes it eerie as hell. King makes it clear in his novel that it causes maximum fear on purpose before feeding because a terrified human makes a more potent meal for him. King even refers to this psychological torture as salting the meat. It needs you to be absolutely terrified first before it eats you. Its physical manifestations also become stronger the more victims it consumes. Its illusions become more detailed and personal, which become harder to resist, and its power to alter reality around its victims also grows stronger. So, the Losers Club is trying to deal with something that's been upgrading itself through human terror and consumption for longer than recorded civilization. Good luck to them. The Host creature. I think that Bong Joon-ho's The Host, released in 2006, should be much more talked about outside of the film circle. This was the year 2000, when an American pathologist working at the US military base in Seoul ordered his Korean assistant to dump large quantities of formaldehyde down a drain that was connected to the Han River. The consequence was an organism that lived on the river, and it was mutated by toxic chemical exposure. It started hunting and feeding on humans to adapt itself and gained efficient ways to catch and consume human-sized prey. The most disturbing detail about the creature is that it develops a secondary mouth inside its primary mouth, like an inner jaw designed specifically to tear through human-sized prey, which means that its body is evolving especially to eat humans. The creature doesn't even eat all of its victims immediately. Rather, it stores some of them alive in its nest. This suggests that the creature also develops some kind of behavioral intelligence as it learns to store food. Yeah, that's smart, but very unsettling for the humans, of course. Bong's brilliant direction, coupled with the incredible design of the creature, already made The Host horrifying, but the way that he left the movie's ending unanswered is the real horror. The creature that we see in the film hasn't been doing this for long, as it's still in its early stages of its evolution. So, what will it eventually become as time passes and it feeds more?
This isn't real enough for you, Billy.
So, that's my list of 8 horror creatures that literally level up by consuming us. I'd like to give some special mention to Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, 1986, SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile from the SCP Foundation lore, and the Xenomorph from Alien Covenant, 2017. Let me know in the comments which creature freaks you out the most. And if you enjoyed this video, well, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss one of these. See you in the next one.